Namaskaram. Welcome to another day of talks as part of the series Mohiniyattam on a Wider Canvas. Today we have as our guest speaker a very well established and erudite scholar of dance, a Vilasini Natyam and a Kuchipudi artist based in Hyderabad, Dr. Anupama Kailash. Dr. Anupama Kailash trained in Kuchipudi from Dr. Uma Rama Rao and has performed extensively over the past 20 years. She has given over 600 performances in the country and abroad and toured the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany and Sweden. She completed her bachelor's and master's degree in dance and then went on to do her doctorate from in dance from the University of Hyderabad. She established Anubhav, a center for dance, music and literature in Hyderabad. Anupama Kailash, along with her disciples, have presented a number of creative and innovative dance choreographies which have all been lauded by critics and connoisseurs. She has also presented several lecture demonstrations and papers at major seminars and conferences of dance. Dr. Anupama is also a Visharad in Hindustani music from the Akhil Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalay and is a graded artist of the Doordarshan. She has authored a book titled Naikas in Kshetraya Padams, which was published by the prestigious Writers Workshop, Kolkata. Dr. Anupama Kailash has also trained intensively in Vilasini Natyam from Padma Bhushan Swapna Sundari. For me personally, Dr. Anupama Kailash has been a source of inspiration for the scholarship and for the thought process, intricate thought process that she brings into her choreographies. It is really a privilege and honor to have Dr. Anupama Kailash with us on this platform to talk to us and to share her exposition of the concept of Lasya. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Anupama Kailash, to this talk series. We really look forward to hearing from you about this concept of Lasya, particularly because Lasya is like a pet concept, especially for Mohiniyattam dancers, because we identify the dance with femininity and grace, and every Mohiniyattam dancer uses this term as as the underlying aesthetic of the dance form. So, could you tell us something more about the form, about especially with relation to your study, the textual references to Lasya?
Yeah, thank you, Maithili. Thank you for having me here, and it's a great pleasure to talk to you as always. So, as you know, my focus has primarily been on the textual aspect, and but at the same time, I've always tried to see that we correlate it to ancient wisdom, because I think these are two things, both of which are equally important. In our study of any concept, which is primarily a textual idea. So I think the concept of the that which existed in land or in the water, or in the idea of birth. So I think these things are as important as what we find in the text. So just to for brevity and for clarity, so I've actually penned down a few points also. So now, I feel that to understand the term Lasya or Tandava for that matter, there are many other aspects which we need to understand first, like the distinction between usages of compound words in our texts, like Purusha Stri or Shiva Shakti or Purusha Prakriti or Shiva Parvati. So these are indicative of what I always say is a contiguous knowledge. So I don't use the word continuous because these are studies of ancient wisdoms, and it is one shares a border with another concept. So it's not a continuous process, but more like a contiguous idea. And this is what I collectively call ancient wisdoms. But the greatest tragedy actually of this century for the urban, Western, educated Indian is the loss of understanding of these ancient wisdoms, which unfortunately the modern civilization has termed, primitive or tribal or pagan. I mean, see, these were words of great honor, but they have taken on a negative connotation because the whole concept of civilization has now is standing on its head. So these ideas, the disconnect with the entity which is called the land and its various activities has caused a disconnect in the modern mind about the concept of the discrete realities of the ethos of a land. But I think today, if we explain the words bija or ankura or bindu or lasya to a farmer, I think he, with his keen sense of, landness or, something to do with the land, will probably understand the import of these words better than we are doing. So I remember Kanakreleji once, since we are on a Mohiniyattam journey. So I remember her once saying that, analysis of time, space, line, volume, pattern, design, image, symbol, all these allegory, simile, metaphor, everything lies in the land of, a civilization. Any of this aspect lies there. But the urban elite, like us, if we understand the infinite realities of the land system, we understand then that all these terms like Tandava or Lasya or Karana or Chari, so we will understand all these terms better, because Karana is not a pose, but it's an activity. Because if you look at the idea from the point of view of etymology also, Karana does not mean only some kind of a pose or 108 pose structures, but it means a pattern of activity, an evolving pattern of activity, which is why you can see the first Karanam, and when you see Gangavataranam, which is the last Karanam, it's a complete reversal. It's a complete reversal, the posture. So you can see that it's a circle. Something begins on its foot and ends on its head. So it's a circle. So this, to try to understand these concepts as units of movement of dance, or to try to understand this idea as several aspects of dance, is like trying to understand, the second order logic without understanding the first order logic. So we are understanding the first order logic through the second order logic, which is not advisable for any system which is claiming to be an ancient knowledge system. So I think the first order logic must be addressed first. Otherwise, a lot of data is lost in the process. Now, how the first order logic manifests through mediums like dance or movement is actually the second order logic. So if we look closely at the underlying reality of textual or these performing traditions of our land, we will realize that the reality they speak about is called a discrete reality. And A always has a relationship with the concept of B. And this is what is called samyoga, which Bharata speaks about when he says, samyoge rasanishpattihi. So he's not talking about an amalgamation, but he's talking about a contact, a point of contact. Now this, okay, I will not go into more details regarding this aspect, but I would like to say that when we try to understand the idea of Tandava and Lasya, I think if we look at if you look at them as wisdom systems or realities, and you look at the idea of the Sankhya, logic system also, there are two types of realities. One is the originating reality, that anything that originates has to be energetic or something filled with chalanam or, energy, and anything that is energizing is feminine. That was always the idea. Lasya, therefore, is attributed a feminine connotation. It doesn't mean that, it's woman oriented, because we didn't have what is the modern gender idea, we had negated that idea long back, actually, in our ancient systems. So we never attributed gender to a body or a particular gender was, there was no gender actually. So one could seamlessly flow into the other, because it was all viewed as energy systems. So if we take Lasya to be originating reality, then therefore it is an energy system, and therefore it is the opposite of inertia, which is the male idea, which is manifest reality. That something from something is the idea there. So if we take inertia as the Purusha Prakriti, and we take, synergy as the Stri Prakriti, then Lasya would therefore symbolize the feminine element. So to actually further explain this, a great scholar, Dr. Arudra, he speaks about this concept of Matrika as the origin, that from the idea of the land or measure, because Ma is a root word to talk about measure actually. So from Ma, in pre-pastoral society, he says women were the dynamic members, and almost all deities of the early pantheon were actually goddesses primarily. And the tribal Ma, or it's where the word Ma or Mata or mother has evolved from. She measures the land and distributes it to various groups for cultivation. So that was a kind of a very interesting idea. And then we know that from the Vedic period, there are several hymns which were addressed to the tribal mother, then to the Apsaras, and then this whole idea of the Apsaras and the dice game, and then the creation of the Apsaras, who are also symbolic of water, Apas, because they are water born. So the whole thing of this, the softer, content of Lasya being taught to the Apsaras in order for it to manifest. These are all, we are taking everything very literally today, but these are all highly symbolic ideas. And, the whole thing of Parvati teaching it to Banasura's daughter, teaching Lasya to Usha Kanya, and then from there, it perpetrating to different regions of the country. And that's how Lasya spreads. That is what the, Abhinadarpana also says, and the Natashastra also says. So this is actually a very larger analysis, this whole idea. And the dice game that is symbolized in the Mahabharata is actually an allegory for this idea. But we are looking at it very literally. But of course, that's for another rainy day, because we don't have that much time to discuss the Mahabharata connotation right now. So the short of it is that Tandava and Lasya, therefore, are ways of reading the manifest or the originating realities. It is not masculine dance or feminine dance as, we generally think. Now let us look at the root, of the term. So if we say Lasya, we are saying Las, Lasa, Lasat, from which the word Lasya or Lasa born. Lasya means something that is born from the Lasa. It's derived. So Lasa, according to the Amarakosha, also if we see, it stands for color or smell. It has a luster. It moves here and there. So even if you see the etymology, it is an energy form primarily. Lasya doesn't say this is woman or this is man or this is a female sentiment. It talks about luster. It talks about leela or playing. It talks about smell. It talks about bronze and phosphorus or the color of, luster. Glittering, something that glitters, las or shines. Lasitam, clearly he says lasitam is energized or something that is beautiful. Now the sound la is an act of taking or giving. Lasa is an act of sporting, jumping, dancing. Leela is an activity. So we can see how the Amarakosha, and when it talks about Lasya Tandava, it gives Tandava as a synonym for Lasya and Lasya as a synonym for Tandava. Interestingly, that's what the Amarakosha does. So he says Natanam Natyam Nrutyam, and he calls it a Tauryatrika. Like how the Sangita Ratnakara says, Geetam Vadyam Tatha Nrutyam. So similarly, it talks about all these three components as offshoots of the two originating realities. One which we are attributing to inertia and one which we are attributing to movement. So, of course, it takes a female connotation naturally, because it is talking about chalana or chetana, which is a feminine idea. So the 5 activities of creation also, that is the Srishti, Sthiti, the Samhara, Tirobhava, Anugraha, even if you look at the Shaiva Siddhanta, all these 5 activities are also attributed to the idea of the Shakti and the and Shiva. But we know of it only from the Shiva angle. But you know, if you look at it, actually, the Kalika and the Munitandava is attributed to, you know, Srishti. The Gauri and the Bhujanga Tandava is attributed. So men are performing Lasya, women are performing Tandava. So it's all a, it's just a concept. So it's not like something, and these are all perceived as realities which cannot be viewed. So that is why when we talk about the dance of Shiva, we only talk about the Ananda Tandava, because they say it is only that which is visible or perceptible to creation. The rest is abstract, or it's an unperceived reality. That is what the Shaiva Siddhanta says. Now, I've already said that, you know, the concept of lasya is so called because of its shining lasam, or relates to the idea of the luster. Now, in text like Bhava Prakasham, he also says it relates to the mutual connection, attraction, and synthesis of masculine and feminine energies. So he says that very clearly. He says it's a subtle, you know, it's a subtle existence or a movement, and he calls it Lalitangahara, Sharada Tanaya in Bhava Prakasham. And he says Manmada Bhava Shreya. That is, it is filled with the idea of love or harmony. So he says it, he also gives you 64 angas. Now, it is another very interesting thing that we can note when we look at the different texts like Natashastra, or when we look later at Manasollasa or Nartana Nirnaya or Bhava Prakasham or Nritya Ratnavali or any of the texts. None of them actually cohesively define the word lasya. They talk about lasya in the context of another aspect called the lasyangas. Like the Natashastra gives you 10, the Nritya Ratnavali gives you some more, Bhava Prakasham gives you 64 angas. So it is interesting why, you know, the idea of the Sthita Pathya or the Asina or the Pushpa Gandhika or the Vichitra Pada, and interestingly, it is given not in the chapter on, you know, hand movements or body postures. It is given to you in a chapter on Tala and Laya. So, I mean, why would he? It's not that, you know, Bharata doesn't know where to place his segments. So I think these are all very, you know, they're kind of bringing us back to the idea that the 10 manifestations of lasya is something that happens within the periphery of the idea of laya. Now, laya is inertia. So the, or laya or samhara, the idea of samhara means inactivity. We think of it as destruction, but it's a destruction of an order, and then there is a recreation of another order. So that's the period between the two.
Okay.
And the period of inertia is always considered to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
So the feminine energy or the Shakti Chalana has to push the masculine idea of manifest reality into action. We can see the symbolism in many texts, even in many poetic works, even in Gita Govindam, you know, when the first shloka also we can see how the night is dark, and then, you know, the father of Krishna, Nanda incidentally also means the correct time. So the word Nanda means, so he says when the time is correct, he's asking him to take Krishna, asks Radha to take Krishna out of inertia.
Okay.
So you can see this idea is, it's kind of echoed in many places. So when we talk about the Lasyangas, now in Bhava Prakasham, he gives you 64, and he says this is a combination of the foot, the uru, the janu, the jangha, the kati, and it is connected to the idea of the las. So he mentions all those parts of the body from which the energy centers or the epicenters originate. Even if you look at the idea of the energy, or the rise of energy levels. Now, another thing to substantiate this thing is, even in the Natya Shastra, when he talks about the lasyas, he gives you the 10 lasyangas in the Tala or in the Laya chapter. But other than that, when he talks about Tandava and Lasya as an idea in the 4th chapter or the chapter on Tandavam, he mentions 4 activities of Lasya. So he says, these are something like the Shrinkhala, the Lata, the Bhedyaka, and the Pindi. Now, if you look at the connotations there, Shrinkhala is circumambulatory. It's like a necklace, he says. So it goes around. Lata it goes like a creeper. So it twines. And Pindi is a cluster. And Bhedyaka, it penetrates. And then there are some other ideas also later which they have given, like Bhujanga, like snake-like. So what are all these ideas? So we are assuming that these are dances to be done by different groups of women, which is what we are thinking is Pindibandha. That is groups of women, or, a certain set of women. 2 women dance this, 3 women dance this, 4 women, or 1 woman dances it. But if you look at the activities, these are the progression of energy. Energy either goes spirals, or it goes like how the Kundalini, goes like a snake, or it circumambulates, or it clusters.
Okay.
So these are energy ideas also. So that is, if you ask me, that is the first order wisdom.
Okay.
That is recognizing it, Lasya, to be an energy centric idea. And from there, how it becomes visible, or how it becomes palpable, or how it becomes viewable is through the movement of the body.
Okay.
But that's the second aspect of it. So that is the practical application of the idea. And similarly in Bharatarnavam, which is also a very, interesting text as far as the Lasyas are concerned for me, because in chapter 13 of Bharatarnavam, he starts the chapter on Lasya with 7 Tandavas.
Okay.
So he says this is a chapter on Lasya, but he talks about, Kriyas. And all these Kriyas are based on Brahmana, or circling.
Okay.
So again, you see the idea there. It's about circling and coming back. So he talks about clockwise, anti-clockwise, serpentine, lightning-like, creeper-like, or that which travels upwards. So he gives you technical names, Dakshina, Vama, Leela, Bhujanga. Again, it becomes very apparent that these are not simply activities, that there's more to it than that. And the interesting section in Bharatarnavam is the origin of the Saptalasyas. So he says it is Shuddha Natya, it is something that is pure and it is unmanifest. So it is not something that can be very easily viewed, he says, by normal perception. What does that even mean? So if Natya is a dramatic activity and everyone can view it and it's meant for everyone, then why does the origin lie in an unmanifest idea? So that means the symbology or the philosophy is being drawn from there and it's being reinterpreted for better understanding.
Yes.
So that's what I feel about it. Like he says Desini or Parvati, or the energy or the source of life. He attributes Peruni to Brahma, or therefore creation. Prenkhani to Saraswati. So it's sound or vak. Kundali to Vishnu, because it is spread and distribution of energy. And Dandika or Kalasha to Lakshmi, which is sustained well-being. So even the attribution of the origins of the Saptalasyas also are very interestingly staggered. So therefore, it's like a synergetic action. And one energy cannot disengage with the other if you want harmony. So I think that is the idea behind, even the Saptalasyas, because there is a section which he says Charyalankara Natana in the Lasya chapter. So strangely, there is some conception point here where all these energies are coalescing in order to give us one comprehensive unit, which is in itself symbolic of creation. So I think that is the whole idea there. And when he talks about, now let's look at the Saptalasyas, because we are talking also technically about, the idea of Lasya. So when you look at Shuddha, I already spoke about it, that, this speaks about the different ideas of creation, sustenance, distribution of energy, sustained well-being, and all these. Then he talks about the Desini or the Lasya Tandava, the Tandava of Parvati, he calls it. Okay. Interestingly, he doesn't actually call it Lasya. He says it's a Tandava of Parvati. Now here he talks about downward movement, upward movement, side movement, and oblique movement. So again, even though he uses the terms of, the foot and the hand placements, the pattern is signaling to us the same idea as that of the energy flow. It kind of signals the same thing. Now, in Peruni, also let's note one more thing, that in the Saptalasya chapter, everything he talks about a he. He talks about a male dancer executing this movement, which is derived from feminine energy. So that's an interesting idea. So when he talks about the third component, which is the Peruni, he says the dancer smears the body with white, and his knees have jingling bells, the ghargaras. He must be well versed in the panchangas or 5 elements of music. So you can see, again, there is a reference there to the 5 elements. Must be a master of Tala, especially Kala and Laya. So I think by now the connotation is becoming pretty obvious to us, how it evolves. So the idea of Lasyanga is being put in the Tala or the Laya chapter. The idea of taking off the energy things from the, inertia idea. And the stamping and the production of sound connected to Nada or Omkara. So even when, the Peruni has been recreated by many people, including Dr. Nataraj Ramakrishna. So the music has been designed with the Omkara as the primary, Nada behind. So that also, Om is nothing but a symbol of origin. It's always symbolized the concept of origin. And the idea of jumping or Vishama is the idea of jumping from one entity to the other. What we spoke about, the contiguous idea. Now, when he talks about Bhavashraya, or he talks about the idea of, deformity, as we see in the idea of Vikata in the Peruni. Now, again, this is a lost in translation idea. Actually, I think the idea of deformity is a wrong translation. It should be disharmony. Because Lasya has to be employed in order to create harmony. That is the idea. It's a harmonizing agent. So even if you look at all these Peruni ideas like Kavicharakam, when he describes the hero or the Nayaka, and he says he's possessed of high qualities, it also talks about Naya or to lead. Then the idea of Gita or song, which is again a concept connected to harmonizing several components together. So Geetam is supposed to be harmonizing several components and making it appear as one. That is the whole idea behind Natya. You have several arts at work, but through Gita, what you're weaving is appearing to be as one art form there. Then when we look at the Prenkhani idea, the Karanas ending in Brahmaris or rotations talks about, again, the rope dancing or moving along a string, now there are 108 units of or knots in that rope. So I think again we are going back to the idea of the idea of the origin. So I don't think we have that much time to talk about what is that 108 and what all it signifies. So we can speak about that some other time. But everything, the Kundali, which is a circular dance, the position of Vaishnava Sthana, which is denoted by steadiness, and the all these components of the Saptalasyas, they tell us many things. So this is immediately accompanied again by the idea of Dandalasya. So Dandalasya is dancing with sticks. The idea of Dandam, or the word Dandam, including if you look at the Amarakosha and other Puranic texts, it has 400 contexts, not one or two. 400 contexts are used just for that word Dandam. So the Dandam, Meru Dandam, or anything is very, very indicative and symbolic of the spine or the spine of the human body. So that is why when you say he's a Dandanayaka, that means he's the spine of the whole tribe, or he's the king of that whole place. So therefore, he's the man who symbolically holds the Dandam. So when you say Dandalasya, it means that you are harmonizing the energy idea with the idea of steadiness. So Dandam stands for steadiness and Lasya stands for energy. So that is why the Rasa Krida, or the idea of Dandalasya, that is Kollata, where you hit the sticks. Now the sticks also has a larger symbology, of course, the measurement of the stick, the 16 angulas that the stick is supposed to measure, also talks about 7 units of movement. So you can see how the 7 occurs everywhere. So the 7 units of movement is actually 3.5, 3.5, 3.5 everywhere. Even if we look at the idea, so even when you do an arati, we'll do it 3 times and then we'll take half. So this 3.5, that is 7 units divided into, muras, it's a complex idea. So I won't touch on that. We'll continue the Lasya idea. So the whole Dandalasya is basically a very sacred Vedic rite. So we know that the origins of these ideas are from ancient wisdom, or if you want to call it Vedic wisdom, or if you want to call it ancient wisdom, we can say that it's originating from there. Because even when you see Kalasha Lasya, which is the 7th idea, so you have the Dandalasya, that is the steadying of the spinal cord, and then the movement of the energies. And Kalasha Lasya speaks about collecting the creation in a kalasha or a pot. So this is again symbolic of the idea of the golden egg or the ellipse or the Hiranyagarbha, as we see the elliptical path of the universe. So if we look at all this, we know that this whole concept is not only ancient wisdom, it is the knowledge of the land, of movement and pattern, and it is also a synergy between activity and conceptualization. So if you look at it, even if you look at it from Siddha traditions, what they will say is Shiva is the casket. So that which is not perceived. And Shakti is the energy going cyclically. Now, this is denoted by the 7 acts of origin or the Saptalasyas. And the theory of the guna or the guni, that is the quality that is perceived. So you're seeing the apple, but the apple is the host. It is the quality of the apple that makes it the appleness. That's what makes it the tangible idea. It's the same idea is reflected in Buddhist thought also. We can see that the same, there is a symbiotic relationship between, the alternating energies of Tandava, Lasya, the spheres of activities, as and when they are required. So to sum it up, I think we are almost done on time. So I think these are all So basically what I'm saying is these are all grammars of life.
Hmm.
And dance has been always perceived as a cosmic activity. That is the first order logic. So dancing lasya, or a dance of harmony for harmony, is the second order logic. And if we reduce them only to forms, and we say this is a form and this is a form and this is a form, then we are making it myopic. We are limiting the view of the idea. So the idea of lasya in any performing tradition which is based in the Nattuva Melam, like Bharatanatyam or Odissi or Mohiniyattam, is the idea of imitating harmony. It is essentially a feminine quality because of the idea of harmony, because it is the woman that keeps the harmony going. And it is therefore predominantly lasya in the female temple traditions, vis-a-vis the male theatrical traditions. Because that synergy works better, or it manifests better in an area that requires it to be harmonized. So lasya is an effort, basically, to sum it up, I would say lasya is an effort to revert back to pre-established harmony between space and between time. And the component that is actually entrusted with this harmonizing is feminine energy, because it is only that which is true energy. Feminine energy makes everything else happen. So according to me, this is the symbolism behind the idea of lasya.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
I think that's a really beautiful interpretation of the concept, and especially since you pointed out the rich symbolism behind the term, and the necessity to go into these different levels, the first order and the second order, and also probably the dangers of taking many of these things in a very literal sense. So I think there's a lot of requirement to reorient the way we approach
Yes.
many of these ancient texts.
Yes, I think we have to unlearn and then relearn many of our preconceived ideas about these things.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama Kailash, once again for sharing your research and for sharing all those rich insights with us on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Maithili. It's a great pleasure. Thank you.